Hey everybody, Boris, let's speak Forex. Welcome to the weekly technicals for the majors for euro dollar, dollar yen, and pound dollar for Aug 12 to Aug 16, 2019. Key levels all around. We certainly have very, very key numbers coming up in the euro dollar and dollar yen, and most specifically in the pound, as a tremendous amount of downside pressure, especially in dollar yen and pound, is being exerted at the end of the week. The calendar this week is relatively muted, but the levels could crack irrespective of event risk because so much of the event risk is really going to be driven by political headlines rather than any kind of economic data. Euro, very interesting. We'll take a look at the charts in a minute and we'll take a look at the risk. But Euro is really not even an 11, 12, 50 trade at this point. It is a 12, 12, 50. It's a 50-point battle between the bulls and the bears. And it's just an incredibly interesting struggle. Still looks to me like a bullish bias, but I could be talking my book. Certainly, though, if we start going underneath the 1200 level, maybe even 1150, it actually gives much more merit to a retest of the 110s. Dollar yen is coming up into some very, very key support levels, levels that we haven't seen since the fat finger flash crash lows of the beginning of the year. So that's going to be a very interesting look. And, it's going to be interesting to see if the risk-off flows just simply continue as they have been in a one-way trip through the 105s. Pound coming up to the 120. We'll take a look at that. That's going to be critical. There's a lot of negative news in the pound. I think the pound is actually very interesting this week because we have a second-tier amount of data in the pound. But if the second-tier amount of data confirms that UK effectively has entered into a recession due to the Brexit fears, that really puts tremendous amount of pressure on the currency. And I wonder, I wonder at this point if it's really just the only way to express displeasure with the direction of where UK politics is going is through the markets. Because I wonder if the markets crash hard enough, that could essentially halt the sort of monomaniacal move towards a no-deal Brexit. We'll take a look and see how that goes. But first, let's take a look at the calendar here. Monday, nothing on the calendar, but Tuesday we do start off UK data, claimant count. We're actually very bearish this because the data was negative both in services and construction. That could be the first negative drop to cable that could take us to 120. And then we have more data as the rest of the week goes by. On the US side, it's just going to be inflationary data. Here we are bearish dollar because we've had very, very little pricing pressures. And actually gas and oil prices have started to fall. So if you see low inflation growth, low average hourly earnings, it's just only adds to the idea that the Fed could lower rates with impunity, essentially, going forward. Into Wednesday, we get UK inflationary data. Here we're also bearish pound because of weaker pricing in the BRC shop services data set. Then into Wednesday night, that's on the calm dollar side. So on the major side, nothing much until Thursday. Thursday, the secondary data set from UK, the retail sales. Here, we're also bearish and high confidence bearish call on cable. So you have these two possible bearish events in cable against a 120 level, which then targets the multi-year post-Brexit lows of 119. It creates a very interesting structure here as the week progresses. And then we have the retail sales data on the US side where we're actually bullish because consumer and spending has really increased. And that could be sort of the one bright spot that could hold dollar yen into the end of the week. Finally, Friday, a very, very tepid calendar, nothing much on the docket. We have U of Michigan sentiment survey and housing start data. All of this stuff just sort of second tier. Really, the really big events this week are going to be the UK data set at the front and then the UK retail sales at the back, along with the US retail sales data to kind of see if the US economy is holding up as we go forward. Now, looking at the charts, when we take a look at the euro, this is where I'm talking about the euro. The euro has become such a tight trade here. As you can see, we're basically holding 20-period SMA. We're 1250 against 1200 hold here for the last 4 days. Very small compression of volatility. We know that when volatility compresses, right, it tends to just resolve. Now, the question is which way it resolves gives you directionality clues. So you can actually see this many, many times where you have light, tight volatility, it resolves to the downside and directional clues work to the downside. this is why it's so important, because if this resolves to the upside, this really opens the directional move all the way out towards the 114 level and makes a much cleaner setup as we go forward. So we'll see how the euro resolves, but for right now, you're still kind of holding the moderate upward bias. It will be very much strongly confirmed if we can take out the 1250s and really take 1300s out. Now, cable, on the other hand, I mean, it's just a swoon to the downside. This actually is a big volatility push to the downside here, which almost confirms you can never be 100% certain, but you can be highly confident that certainly the 120 level will be the first level to be run. It's just too tempting. There's too many stops around here. But the true stop, and I think this is what's important to see, let me just go back to the weekly charts because you can see this on the weekly charts better. So if you go back on the weekly charts, this is the post-Brexit lows right over here. The low over here was 1904, just like 4 pips off the 19 handle. And that is and then you got to revisit it a little bit at 1986, about a couple of months later. But overall, this is the big test. I think this is where we're really going to see if cable is going to hold, because a break of the 119s essentially signals market's complete lack of faith in any kind of a solution for the Brexit story. So I'll be watching that very carefully. And then last but not least, here's yen. Yen, this is the weekly chart on the yen. You can see that we definitely closed near the lows of the weekly, but we did hold. If we go back to the dailies, I think we did hold. We dropped through the 105s, but came back on the close. And this 105.50 to me is going to be the key level as we start the week, because if that gets broken and we take it down to 105s, then the temptation to run the flash crash lows is going to be enormously strong. So we either hold here, and this is going to be the near-term bottom, or we're going to go right straight down all the way towards the flash crash highs of the 104s as the week progresses. So that's sort of where the levels are. It's very interesting. We are at very, very key tipping points all across the board, and we'll be watching everything very, very carefully from the start of trade tonight. Wish you guys the best luck, the best trading. Boris Schlossberg, over and out.